All right, so have you ever stared at a paint chip display at the store and just felt totally overwhelmed by
Uh,
snowdrift versus Worcester white, you know?
Absolutely.
Or maybe you've wondered how makeup companies manage to nail those foundation shades for every skin tone imaginable.
Amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
guess what? There's actually a whole career path dedicated to exactly that kind of color precision. And get this, it's called a color sampling operator, a job you've probably never even heard of,
Right.
but one that secretly shapes our visual world in ways we don't even realize. So today, that's what we're diving deep into on this episode, the world of a color sampling operator.
It's so true. I mean, think about it. We are literally surrounded by color all the time, every single day. But
Yeah.
we rarely actually stop and think about the science and the artistry behind making those colors.
Yep.
And those are the folks who make sure that the blue of your favorite jeans or the red on your car matches what the designers intend perfectly. It's really incredible. They're kind of like color alchemists in a way, working with pigments and dyes with this insane level of precision.
So, no, just like eyeballing it then, I'm guessing that whole pinch of this, dash of that wouldn't really fly in this line of work.
Huh. Definitely not. We're talking strict recipes, exact measurements. The tiniest miscalculation could mean thousands of products going out with the wrong color.
Oh, wow.
Super high stakes color matching.
Wow, high stakes color matching. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing a cross between a science lab and an artist's studio.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of bubbling beakers and maybe a paint-splattered smock or two. What do you think?
You're surprisingly not far off. It really depends. Think high-tech labs where they analyze chemical compounds, bustling factory floors where colors are mixed on this massive scale.
Oh.
And yeah, even those cool design studios where they actually come up with all the initial color ideas.
That's so cool. And one thing that surprised me when we were doing research for this episode from those RoleCatcher articles was that there's a surprising amount of collaboration involved
Oh, yeah.
in this role, which seems kind of counterintuitive at first.
Yeah.
You'd think a color specialist, they'd be tucked away working solo in their own little colorful world.
Yeah, you'd think so, right. But it's actually the complete opposite. Creating color is not a one-person job at all. It takes constant communication between designers, engineers, the quality control folks. I mean,
Oh,
everyone's
no.
invested in making sure that the color goes from an idea to the actual product without any hiccups along the way.
It's like a team effort.
Totally. Imagine a car company is launching this brand new model and it's got this never before seen color, right?
Okay, yeah.
The color sampling operator. They're the link between what the designer dreamed up and the engineers who actually have to figure out how to make that color a reality.
That's a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah. It's high pressure, high collaboration, the whole deal.
Wow, that is what I call a high-impact job. And speaking of impact, one thing that really stood out to me from the RoleCatcher research was how much technology, especially automation, is playing a role in this field. Does that mean, robots are replacing human color perception?
That is a really good question, and it's a big part of how this career is changing and evolving.
Yeah.
Robots aren't taking over completely just yet or anything like that.
Okay.
But those automated systems, they're getting more and more advanced in how they can mix and apply colors, which actually means that color sampling operators are becoming even more specialized.
Oh, interesting.
They're focusing on the really fine details of color analysis and quality control, and also troubleshooting those really complex color problems that machines haven't quite figured out yet.
Makes sense. Those machines aren't perfect.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet, yeah. So I imagine those problem-solving skills are more important than ever now.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of important skills, the term operations monitoring popped up a bunch in our sources. And I got to admit, I wasn't totally sure what all that entailed. What does operations monitoring actually look like for a color sampling operator?
So operations monitoring, it's kind of like being a color detective in a way.
A color detective.
Yeah, you're looking at data from all these high-tech machines, like spectrophotometers,
Okay.
and you're analyzing these tiny little changes in the color, like the hue or how saturated it is, stuff you probably wouldn't even notice just by looking at it.
Oh, wow.
And then you got to make sure that every single batch of color, whether it's paint or plastic or even food coloring, actually matches the exact standards.
So that's where the precision comes in.
Totally. You need a really good eye, you got to be comfortable with data, and honestly, you got to really love precision.
You got to be passionate about it.
For sure.
I like that analogy, though, the color detective.
Yeah.
It makes sense. When you think about it, you need someone who not only gets color theory, but can also work with all that tech stuff to make sure the theory actually works in real life.
Right.
And speaking of real life stuff, those RoleCatcher articles we looked at, they mapped out a pretty clear path for building a career in this. You start as a trainee, and you can work your way all the way up to lid color sampling operator.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things someone should know if they're thinking about those different stages?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those career paths where you need the technical skills, but also that creative spark.
You got to have both.
You got it. You usually start out as a trainee, learning the basics from people who've been doing it forever, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You'll master those color mixing techniques and get familiar with all the tech they use. It's a lot of soaking everything up, asking questions, and just getting a feel for how color works.
So it sounds like the perfect starting point for someone who loves experimenting and, isn't afraid to get a little messy with color.
Exactly. That's the kind of person who would thrive there.
But what about after that training? Then what?
That's when you level up to junior color sampling operator.
Ooh, leveling up.
It's where you put all that knowledge to work. You get more independence, more responsibility.
Okay.
You might be prepping color samples for like a new line of makeup or checking the colors on fabric coming off the production line to make sure they're all consistent.
So it's all about precision and making sure everything is the same. No room for happy little accidents at that stage.
Well, every now and then you might get a happy accident that leads to something totally new.
True.
But yeah, at this level, it's about getting those core skills of accuracy and consistency down pat.
Makes sense.
But that doesn't mean there's no room for creativity.
Right.
Say a batch of fabric comes out looking a bit off, different from the sample they were trying to match.
Well,
The junior operator has to figure out why it happened and then how to fix it, all while dealing with deadlines and industry standards.
talk about pressure.
For real, for real.
Sounds like you need nerves of steel to handle that.
Hmm.
But our sources, they also mention that you can actually get even more creative freedom as you move up.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So tell me, what's it like being a senior color sampling operator?
Now that's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
At the senior level, you're not just mixing colors anymore, you're actually dreaming up new ones.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Like imagine having to create a shade of red that'll stay bright and vibrant on a kid's toy even after being in the sun for ages.
Oh, wow.
Or a blue that keeps its depth even under those super bright stage lights. That's the kind of challenge a senior operator lives for.
That's so cool. See, I never even thought about the science and the creativity that goes into making colors that can, stand the test of time and sunlight.
Right.
It really makes you appreciate the stuff we take for granted.
Totally.
But obviously, with great color creating power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
So what does it take to reach the top of the mountain to become a lead color sampling operator?
A lead color sampling operator. They are like the maestro of color. They've mastered the technical side, they can solve any problem you throw at them, and they have this deep understanding of how color affects everything from design to how people feel about a product.
Wow.
But they're also leaders. They motivate their team, they mentor the newbies, and they're always pushing the boundaries of what you can do with color.
So it becomes about so much more than just knowing the technical stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You're leading a team, you're influencing color trends.
You're shaping how people see the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like it's got to be super competitive to get there.
It can be. Yeah.
Our RoleCatcher research really emphasized that it's not enough to just have the skills.
Mm-hmm.
You got to know how to sell them, especially in today's job market. What advice would you give to someone who wants to stand out, especially when it comes to interview prep?
It's like that saying, right? Got to be able to sell it just as well as you can do it.
Exactly. But what does selling yourself even look like when we're talking about color sampling?
It's about going that extra mile to show your passion, not just listing off skills on a resume.
Okay. Yeah.
So imagine you're in the interview and instead of just saying, yeah, I know how to use this software, you actually tell a story about a time you solved a really tricky color matching problem.
Ooh, I like that.
You could even bring some samples, like a before and after, to show them exactly how you work.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Or you could talk about how you got into color theory and then how that made you experiment with pigments, and maybe you even came up with a whole new palette for a project.
Wow.
It's those kinds of things that make you memorable,
Yeah, it shows you're not just interested, you're passionate.
Exactly.
And you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
100%.
Speaking of which, our RoleCatcher sources, they had some really cool insights into how technology is changing how people find jobs, even in something as specific as color sampling.
It's crazy how much is changing things.
I know. They even mentioned this thing RoleCatcher has. It's like an AI-powered interview practice tool.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
What do you think? How could something like that help someone get ready for a color sampling interview?
It's wild. It's basically like having a personal coach, but for your career.
That's a great way to put it.
Like imagine practicing your answers to questions that are specifically designed for color sampling roles.
Okay.
And then the AI, it analyzes everything, how you're talking, your tone, even like your body language, and then it gives you feedback.
No way.
Yeah, it's super high tech.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who might be feeling inspired, like they want to explore the world of color in a whole new way,
Mm-hmm.
what's the one thing you really want them to take away from today's deep dive?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Hmm.
Okay, here's a question for you. What color really speaks to you? Like, what color brings back a feeling, a memory, some kind of possibility?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And then imagine taking that passion, that gut feeling you have about color, and making it your career. That's what a color sampling operator gets to do. They work with this universal language, they blend the science and the art, and honestly, they shape how we see the world.
That is a beautiful way to put it. It's like they're taking how we see the world through color and then adding their own unique perspective to it.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, if you're out there and today's deep dive has you curious about color sampling, make sure you check out the links we've got to all those awesome RoleCatcher resources.
They're super helpful.
They really are. Who knows, maybe you'll be the one mixing up the next big color trend.
I love that.
Thanks for joining us on this colorful deep dive. We'll see you next time.